there, it's Joe Pardavila. Welcome back to Forbes Books Radio. And Teddy Roosevelt once said, far and away the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. And joining me today is the CEO of Samasource, a remarkable company that finds tech jobs for the world's poorest people. Samasource's employees have worked under contracts with tiny companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Walmart. Her name is Wendy Gonzalez. Hey, Wendy, how are you doing?
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. And I really can't start a conversation about Samasource without bringing up the loss of your founder and CEO, Lila Jana. First of all, my condolences. How has the team been handling it since she passed back in January?
Yeah, it was an incredibly difficult and sad event for all of us. She'd been sick for a while, but no matter kind of being aware of that, it hit us very hard and very quickly. But I think at the end of the day, really, our team has come together incredibly well because Lila had an amazing vision, and we all feel so honored to be able to carry forward her vision. So I think what's really amazing about the founding vision that she set out and the people that we have at our company is that everybody is like doubled down. They're like, you know what? We want to make her proud. We want to show that, Samasource can grow and, was planned to grow for, generations upon generations. So we're all very proud to fulfill her legacy.
It's amazing, when you read the stories about Samasource and the fact that she started it from the ground up and, the entrepreneurial term, follow your North Star. But it seemed like Lila was the North Star of the company, right? She was like, you hate to throw around names like Steve Jobs, but she was like the Steve Jobs of Samasource, correct?
Yeah, she founded this vision. I mean, she was an incredible, she was just really a bright light. Life is really, really, really strange that way. But yeah, this was her baby, and she believed it to the core, especially with her experience having, gone to Africa at a young age, teaching in Ghana, all the way to her experiences at the World Bank that really formulated her view, her hypothesis that giving work was better than giving aid.
Great. All right. Well, it's so cool. I just couldn't go further without mentioning her. So let's talk about Samasource. And for people who are not familiar with it, I had mentioned that the company finds tech jobs for people around the globe. So explain to me how the company works.
Our model is that we purposely hire people in underserved communities. And what we mean by underserved community is really reaching those people who have the greatest barriers to unemployment. So we focus on bringing in people into Samasource that make less than $2 a day, which is the World Bank standard for poverty.
Wow.
As you can imagine, right? Less than getting a coffee at Starbucks. They would only buy you actually half a Starbucks today.
I was going to say, but they give you a sugar packet for that. But yes, continue. I get it.
So we focus on hiring people who are making less than $2 a day, and specifically in regions that have, like I said, greatest barriers to employment. So for example, we hire people in the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. We focus on 50% women and 50% youth, because unemployment rates for people from these areas is upwards of 70%.
Wow.
We provide the qualification for the job is really, do you meet these impact criteria? Then we provide very specific digital skills training, and then hire people into Samasource to perform digital work at full-time living wages and benefits.
Wow. I mean, it's so crazy that you describe this picture because, fortunately for myself, I've never had, and for a lot of people who live in the States have not fallen on hard times to this extreme. And the only thing we can imagine is just through things we see either in documentaries or in feature films. So I'm just trying to picture, like, how do you find these people? Because I'm trying to, like I said, when you're watching a movie, it's like you drive into these towns where it's a dirt road and it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, how do you find these people?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. So we started by working with community partners. Our original founding and how we got into the Nairobi locations as well as into Gulu is that Gulu, Uganda, as an example, is that we work with community partners in the areas who already have training facilities, and we basically tagged on and said, hey, we not only can provide very specific digital skills training, but we can do that all important thing, which is provide the access to employment. If you are a woman or a young man, the ability to get a job, especially a professional job in the digital business, is nearly impossible if you don't have the network, the access, or the specific degree. And so we don't target people who are from middle class backgrounds and have college degrees. We target people who have those greatest challenges.
Before we get into AI, I just sort of want to just talk about how Samasource's structure works. So is it like a soup to nuts where you find the people, you train the people, and then you employ the people? Is it all a one stop shop kind of situation?
Yeah, that's effectively where we're at. When we first launched, we worked primarily with community partners because they worked in these particular areas. For example, Kibera, slums of Nairobi, or Mathare, or up in Gulu, and that's how we originally started. And they would identify people who are coming into their facilities, that were looking for either training or things like clean water services, and we started our initial trainings there. Then after that, we would provide our own specific Samasource training and then hire them into our work, provide the employment and benefits. But what's happened is, as we've grown over the years, we've now moved, Joe, over 50,000 people out of poverty,
Wow.
which is really awesome. And we've built a reputation. We're well understood, or known in the communities that we work in. So people typically come and they sign up for our training, and we go from there.
And without sounding crude, how does Samasource make their money? Because at the end of the day, you're a business, so obviously these people are not paying for the training. So, do you mind just breaking down how the revenue works with Samasource?
Absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit more about the what we do here in a bit, but
Okay.
basically we sell engagements to companies like Google, Microsoft, and Walmart.
Mhm.
And the area that we focus in is in training data for machine learning. So we'll have an engagement or a contract with, say, a Google as an example, and then we will provide the software platform as well as the humans in the loop, our employees, who perform the expert level of annotation. Before machines can learn how to see, speak, or read, they need to be trained with structured labeled data. So, an example of that is a self driving car. Right before a car could drive itself, it would need to be able to detect lanes,
Mhm.
pedestrians, road signs, vehicles, as an example. And so, companies that are building these applications need to process, lots and lots, millions and millions, sometimes billions of images that include that structured training data so that they can learn how to see and detect objects. So
Uh,
that is the area that we chose to focus in because, one, not only is this something that you can both sort of train people in, it's a human judgment, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So it was kind of well suited work, but it was also an area where there was a lot of demand. So we started focusing in on this area several years ago, really right when the technology was being adopted. So we started doing machine learning and training data work back in 2012. We built a platform, a software platform around being able to sort of make the humans as efficient as possible and do as much of the kind of automated labeling as possible, so that we could then sell contracts to large companies who needed to consume training data to deliver AI.
The ironic part of it, Wendy. I'm sure you kind of laugh about this as well. Is AI can't exist without the human element. Like you need someone to input all that data into this artificial intelligence.
Exactly. Somebody needs to teach the machine, and
Right.
it's going to be some time, quite some time before human judgment isn't necessary. In fact, it's really when we get to the point to where everything's already labeled, we'll be at the singularity. We'll be at the point where all AI is possible. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and it's surprising, Joe, how complex the scenarios are and how much of that kind of human context and judgment is critical.
And I will say some of the stuff you've worked on is pretty fantastic. Like your resume, the company's resume is pretty impressive. Weren't you involved in the Xbox Connect technology?
Yes, that was earlier on in our machine learning days. Yeah, so all those great games like Dance Dance Revolution and whatnot have benefited from
Wow.
Source workers who've helped make the Xbox more accurate.
And one of the other innovations too is, and this is on a lot of people's minds, is smart cities. Is that something that Samasource has as part of their future?
Yeah, definitely, Joe. So we work in a number of different industries, safety and transportation definitely being one of them. So yeah, there's a lot of interest in everything from protecting pedestrians, and managing movement of traffic, all the way to, of course, things like automated self-driving cars and trains and buses. So yeah, we work in those areas. We do a lot of work in augmented and virtual reality, e-commerce, but also really kind of across every industry because AI is super pervasive. One example that's kind of neat because we love to work on projects as well that also have a social mission. We did this awesome project for Vulcan where they were looking to basically help conservation efforts really reduce the poaching of elephants. We basically trained the data that allowed their drones, whom could basically identify and detect poaching behavior, send alerts basically to rangers so that they can actually remove poachers from grounds that could never
Wow.
be by by people in cars.
That's awesome. And you know what's crazy that like all this amazing work you're doing with these workers who are like you said, we're living below the poverty line. I have trouble working my phone. How long is the training? Because it boggles my mind because the whole idea of the stuff that you guys work on and the people, I can't imagine that a lot of these people had a lot of experience in tech in any way, shape, or form. How does that whole training work? It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, based off of our mission, we're not looking for, for people who've had lots of experience. In fact, really the part of the power of our mission is that we are a bridge employer. The vast majority of people coming into Samasource do not have that, professional experience. So we're really providing that first, kind of formal job. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, talent is incredible. And so we really focus our training on very specific, both technical training. We also do kind of personal, interpersonal and communications training as well. But we can get somebody, up and running, working on projects for some of the world's leading companies. We can do that in under 2 weeks, like
What?
from that's all the way to working on a production project.
Did you say 2 weeks?
Yes.
How's that possible?
We've put a lot. I know, it's a little crazy. Well, there's a couple of things. One is that we put a lot of time and energy into our learning and development platform. So we have something we call Sama U, so Sama University, that we have been honing for, the last 10 years, really focused on how can we provide a comprehensive, kind of training experience that allows people to move into, again, the formal workplace, but also provides the technical skills. And then we have put a lot of energy into our software platform. So it's super usable. And we basically have created a platform that's as intuitive as possible so that when we bring people onto projects, we're really focused on, okay, how do we deal with the client specific requirements as opposed to teaching from the ground up.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a pretty incredible process. And if I were to rank sort of anything in our superpowers, that's one of them.
I
It's
mean,
getting people.
it's unreal because I just think it takes me like 2 weeks to put together something from IKEA, and yet you have these people in less than 2 weeks, helping build AI programs. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty neat. I gotta hand it to our leadership teams in East Africa. They're amazing.
So let's talk about East Africa because here in the States, we're so overwhelmed with COVID-19 news. Like we sometimes forget that COVID-19 is a worldwide pandemic. It's not just all about us like it usually is. What are the effects of COVID in some of these areas where you have projects running in like Kenya and Uganda?
Yeah, so yeah, COVID is pretty global. Um,
Yeah.
in the cases of Kenya, it's really, really pretty interesting. The government took a really, really strong stance on containing COVID, and they've also have, I think, a great deal of expertise having had to deal with Ebola and
Mm.
other pandemics in the past. So they locked down pretty much overnight, where transportation, buses, even private transportation, all got locked down.
Wow.
And gosh, knock on wood, I'm not a virologist, so I speak from the standpoint of our business, but it's been incredible. And now the Uganda case count is down to just a few a day. So
Wow.
they have returned, the country's returned to near normal operations. In Kenya, the cases are still growing. And so there still are kind of COVID prevention measures in place, like there are in many places in the world.
So how are you running in these operations that you have in Kenya and Uganda? Do you have sort of the protocols we have here, where it's people wearing masks, gloves, hand sanitizer up the wazoo? Is that how the operation's working now?
Yeah, well, it's it's a really, really interesting, yeah, story and journey. I'd love to share more about, but yeah, all the regulations are in place. I mean, Kenya was had mandatory masks months ago,
Mm,
countrywide. But was really kind of interesting and challenging about our particular business models that when the pandemic hit, making the transition into a traditional work from home wasn't quite as easy. So, as you can imagine, I'll just take Gulu, Uganda as an example. The traditional housing where we work are mud huts.
mm.
There isn't consistent power. There may be internet, but in terms of reliable infrastructure, it was a completely different kind of a challenge. And the same in our locations in Nairobi. So we want to take an approach that was really holistic, one that put certainly our clients and business continuity, of course, at the forefront, but equivalently importantly, how can we do so in a safe and caring manner for our workers? So we had to do something really neat, Joe, to be able to create that continuity just as quickly as possible as these countries were, taking a very strong, stance towards COVID prevention. Is we actually ended up in a volunteer opt-in only basis. We actually ended up moving our team members who wanted to participate into something we called Sama Home. The idea was how could we move people into a traditional sort of work from home, safe environment with the reliable infrastructure, and how could we do it quickly? So we ended up moving them into resorts. People, we were able to, provide rooms that had, dedicated, bathrooms, full on-site meal preparation, medical staff on site, daily temperature checks, like extra sanitization, and a very comfortable place to where we could still have, a distance and a remote workforce that could deliver, all of the, because our clients' needs, right,
Yeah.
delivering these AI solutions. They didn't stop. And that was our solution. Was the Sama Home, and it was incredible. We had well over 99+% opt in on our,
Wow.
and our clients were absolutely incredible too. We actually needed to, obviously this was an investment that we were making as an organization, but our clients were very very supportive, and yeah, it really helped us keep continuity for not just employment continuity, but continuity for the training day business at 98%.
And how many what
So
was the head count on that? I'm curious. How many people were in those resorts, Osama homes?
2000.
What?
Yeah. Almost 2000. Yeah.
Holy cow, that is amazing. I mean, you guys were the NBA, bubble before the NBA did it. You guys created your own little safety bubble there with those Sama homes.
Yeah, it was crazy, crazy effort. And again, I'm so thankful to our teams in East Africa who navigated this. But yeah, we had our first SOM home up and running within 2 weeks.
What is it
Transferred
with
our
you guys
team.
in 2 weeks? Can you guys cure, can you guys cure the coronavirus in 2 weeks? Do you have someone on staff? Because it seems like everything you guys do miracles in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's incredible, incredible team effort. So yeah, that was it worked really well. We had great, productivity, continuity, and then of course, what was really interesting is that we all also obviously wanted to get ourselves into a sustainable position, one where we could ultimately reunite, family members. Again, it was always opt in. People could go home when they needed to. We had a situation where people would need to re opt in, but what happened, which was great, in Uganda, is that we got to a place to where not only did sort of business and the government open up, but I mean, like I said, case counts down to 1, 2, 3 a day, right? They
Wow.
hardly have 1,000 cases in Uganda, which is crazy for a nation of 50 million people.
Wow.
But yeah, we were able to safely transition, into back into the office in those locations with all the appropriate, social distancing, kind of Ministry of Health measures. So we've been doing in great shape there. So we still have some work from home and some a handful of folks in the office. And then in Kenya, in Nairobi in particular, what was amazing is the government, I think, really encouraged work from home and encouraged the local ISPs, the national ISPs, to provide more coverage. And so what happened during this period of Sama Home is that some of the largest ISPs actually ended up rolling out fiber to the neighborhoods that our agents live in. So they have fiber to the home. So now we have pretty much
Did
everybody
you do
into
that
a
in
work.
2 weeks too?
No, that wasn't 2 weeks.
Okay, good. I was gonna say. Okay.
That took a little bit longer because yeah, we had to work in conjunction with the fiber rollouts. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. So now we've got pretty much everybody working at home, and we really have to look at this pandemic for the long term. So we are keeping an eye on things, but ultimately at the end of the day, business continuity and the safety of our employees comes first.
You can't say nicer enough things about your company. And the one thing I think about with what you're doing with a lot of these people, like we talked about, who live below the poverty line, that you're changing generations of families. Can you process that? Like the fact that these people that now have these jobs, for the rest of their life, the family lineage is probably saved because of a company like Samasource.
Well, we're extremely passionate about the work that we do, and I think the thing that we really do try to track. So we've been around for 12 years, but one of the things we take very very seriously is impact measurement. So are we actually making a difference? That I think is the question
Mm.
that we constantly challenge ourselves with. And I really have to credit Lila's vision. She did an incredible job with this. But from day one, we treated impact measurement with the same rigor as financial measurement. Every quarter, reports on did we target the right audience, right? For us was, the less than $2 a day, you know, uh, the vast majority having, no formal employment experience or underemployed. So we put rigor into kind of our qualification processes for impact. But then beyond that, once they joined Samasource, were we able to increase their income substantially? Where was that money being spent? Like, trying to prove not only the efficacy of the model, but the idea that financial independence really is the solution.
Hmm.
Right. What do people spend money on once they have that income? Well, what you would expect: healthy foods, education, you know,
Yeah.
uh, safe housing, which I think was really, really important to us, as opposed to the sort of give aid and dictate what people, should get. So we started doing that, and then one of the things that is a really, really exciting milestone for us now. We are concluding something called a randomized control trial. Joe, are you familiar with like FDA drug tests where, like, oh, here's a new drug and you take a placebo
Oh,
and then
sure.
the real
Yeah.
drug? So a randomized control trial is that same idea. It's kind of the sort of the holy grail or the gold standard in really proving, whether your mission or your change is impactful. And so what we did, and we're concluding a 5-year investment, is all the way back in 2015 we launched this. When we in 2016 we brought in 3 groups. A group that we would have normally recruited to Samasource but didn't go to training and didn't get employed. Then a kind of a next control group that went to training but did not get employed. A third control group that got the training and got employed. And we did this in conjunction with 2 amazing professors from MIT. So we've been tracking people throughout this journey every 6 months for the last 3 years. And the results that they found so far, and we're going to talk more about it once the academic paper is published. What's incredible is that, Joe, to answer your question, it's hugely impactful. So
Wow.
those were going to Samasource and were trained and employed have a materially different income than those who didn't. Materially meaning, I want to be sure not to, I want to let the paper quote the numbers, but when I say material, I mean like 60+% material difference.
Wow.
And that's 3 years after they left Samasource.
Amazing.
Those that had training, this is the other thing that's amazing, is that those who had training but didn't get employed also had a material increase. And I think it kind of speaks to the entire mission, which is we're really just trying to untap potential. Once people have that access and know that there is so much more around the corner, it's not, the informal jobs of, whether it's collecting scrap metal or being a day laborer on a construction site or selling snacks, in your local community. To know that there's that professional career is incredible. And we see after people leave Samasource, we have over 80% that are making more money than they did equal or more than they did at Samasource, or have gone back to university.
I mean, listen, I've only been talking for like 20 minutes, but I'm pretty sure that Lila is looking down at you guys with a big smile and just proud of what you guys have been able to accomplish and be able to continue the mission that she had set forth, 12 years ago now. So I just want to wish you guys the best of luck, and I can't wait to see what Samasource continues to do in these communities and just changes lives of generations and generations of people going forward. So keep up the good fight, Wendy, and I really appreciate the time you took to tell me about Samasource today.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.